All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh Juice, an indie game podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tommy Fresh, and joined as always, it is
the other host, Matty Juice. What's up, everybody? Welcome to an exciting week in video games. And it's the week of PAX East, Tom, and I'm excited. I'm pumped. Can't wait.
Yeah, we're recording this on a Tuesday. You'll be listening to it at least on Wednesday, if not later. But on Thursday, we will be traveling to New England for PAX East, hopefully stopping to get some Colony Grill pizza in Connecticut, and then, making our way up to the great state of Massachusetts, and then going to the con on Friday and Sunday. I got my passes right here, folks. If you are going to PAX East, please find us. You'll see us. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. We'll have a bunch of those orange balls behind Maddie over there on us, and we're going to be balling out, as they say, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But we're going to talk about it all next week. We're going to a big recap episode. It'll be awesome. But before we get to that, we do have a game to discuss this week. The Rebel Transmute, a Metroidvania. We'll get to that. But how are you doing? How's your weekend?
Yeah, it was good. St. Patty's Day on Sunday, so it was great. Get a little corned beef. I'm not a big cabbage guy, but corned beef, potatoes. It's also since I've married into an Italian family, St. Joseph's Day. So you get St. Joseph's Day pastries. That's like the thing. I think it's called like sfingi or something. I don't know, something in Italian. Been doing that for a while, so it's nice. It's like a dual holiday of like I get the corned beef, I get the potatoes, the rye bread, all that good stuff, and then I also get they're like cannoli and custard cream filled pastries that we have for dessert. So and they're pretty good. Yeah, they get them from typically from like New York somewhere up in like Brooklyn, I guess, or something like that. But pretty dang good. Yeah, so I had a pretty good weekend, and yeah, that was definitely the highlight. How about you? How's everything going?
It's going. On Saturday, hung out with our cousin Dan, who will be joining us going to PAX, as well as our buddies Pat and Will. We just had like a day. My friend Will is having a baby. Well, he is not. His wife is having a baby very soon, so he's just trying to get some bro time before he's committed to little bro time, and played some like lawn games, cornhole, what the heck is it called, can jam, and then there's another game that we've played. I brought it to your house before. It's called Ramp Shot. This game is awesome. I love Ramp Shot. It's super it's like an interactive what do you call it, like long game in a way.
Yeah.
Hard to explain. It's like you're throwing a ball into a net, but there's more going on. That was a lot of fun. We also played some Switch games, which actually, we played a little bit of Boomerang Fu, which we've talked about on the show. Great game. Yeah. Some Smash. And then they're like, oh man, what else do you want to play? What else do you have on your Switch, Tom? And I'm like, you guys want to play Mario Tennis? Like, because I have the Switch one, Aces, Mario Tennis Aces. And I forgot how freaking good that game is. Mario Tennis Aces is insane. It's a fighting game, but tennis. And it just, we had like these epic rallies, doubles. Oh man, Spike, the weird little character that has a tennis racket that's bigger than its head. That character's awesome. Was OP in my opinion. Also Blooper is the squid. Also OP for sure. But I didn't have a very Irish St. Patty's Day. I built a grill. We bought a grill, so I put it together. Nice. Then I went out to work in Hershey, which I was there for a couple days until today. And I did have a little bit of Irish whiskey. I picked up some Guinness, had it in the hotel room, and then went out drinking with my coworkers. And that was fun. It was a long couple days though, so I'm happy to be home for 2 days and then headed to PAX, and then then we'll be back. But yeah, overall good couple days, but I think the next couple days are going to be even better.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what else is awesome. You know what's great, Matt?
Tell me.
The Fresh Juice Discord, folks. This is one of the best places
Oh,
in the world to hang out. We're getting new fresh juice heads left and right. They're coming in. They're hanging out. Balitro, hey, listen, I'm still posting about Balitro. I had an epic run this morning before work, and it was unfortunately cut a little short. I'm still trying to beat the blue steak. The blue steak is so hard, but
yeah.
it's a great place to hang out. All that's in the show notes. Please check out the Fresh Juice Discord. It's also a good way to kind of interact with us and keep up to date with whatever, we're doing with the show or other content wise. So check that out. But we have some news. You posted some news articles here. What's going on?
Yeah, so threw in two different news articles here. One of them is kind of discussion I want to have with you and obviously with the listeners too, and to just kind of see what you think. But the first one here is just something I saw pop up today. A new game published by Donkey gets a release date. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Donkey, video game Donkey on YouTube, huge YouTuber that has made a lot of funny gaming kind of videos from everything from like AAA to like small indie games. And he actually started a game studio back in 2022, I believe. It's called Big Mode Games, co-founded by him. And this is going to be their first indie game that's being published. It is a game called Animal Well, and it is a Metroidvania where you control a slime that will adventure into a variety of mostly underground labyrinths. So it seems pretty interesting. Comes out on May 9th on Steam, PS5, and Switch. Figured it was probably worth checking out. Maybe something we review on the show, but I know Donkey's got a ton of fans. I don't watch all of his videos, but I know people just love this guy. So I think this is going to get a lot of love if it's a good game right out of the gate. And we'll see kind of, we're doing a Metroidvania today. We'll see if he's able to, they were able to kind of innovate on Metroidvanias in general, or if it's just going to be kind of a standard Metroidvania. But yeah, just figured it was a little bit newsworthy, that he's putting out a game in just a few weeks here.
Well, I'll tell you what, I played this game a year ago at PAX. They had
Really?
a demo. Yeah, Animal Well. And this game is beautiful. If you haven't, seen it or heard anything about it, please go just do a search for Animal Well. It is a beautiful game, kind of that pixel stuff that like has this like really moody aesthetic with like these cool layers, and it feels very, I don't know, like it feels like the like the LED lights that people will put in their offices now. It feels like it's that vibe that it's giving you, and the demo was super relaxing actually. And I don't know, I thought like when I played it, I maybe talked to whoever was demoing it, said that yeah, that's kind of the vibe here. We don't want something super stressful. We want it to be kind of like easygoing and like kind of more of an experience. And I thought that they were really nailing that in the demo last year. And it's cool to actually see that it's getting a release date. Something I'm definitely interested in playing for the show, hopefully. So yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, I didn't know that it was being made by a YouTuber, so that's pretty interesting. So maybe we can make a game, Maddie.
Yeah, we could, and we
game.
will. Yeah, we've already brainstormed some ideas on the show for
We sure
games.
have.
We just need the skill part of it. But no, that's awesome. I didn't even remember. Maybe it'll be at PAX this year too. We'll have to see, and that's really cool to hear that like they're kind of taking like a lower difficulty kind of view with Metroidvanias, because I feel like a lot of them, and we'll talk about it later in the show when we review the game, a lot of them are difficult, right? Like by design. So talking about like, will they give it a kind of a unique twist? From my perspective, I'm all for an easier Metroidvania to just enjoy the art, go through the story, and also just have some good gameplay elements. So yeah, we'll definitely check out Animal Well at some point. Could be a cool game to review. But then yeah, the other article that I had in here was something that I actually had never heard of before. It is It's about Celeste 64. So it
Hmm.
says Celeste 64 may be tiny, but it should be a game of the year contender. So Celeste, as we know, is a very popular indie game, and I did not even realize that they had released kind of a miniature version of Celeste called Celeste 64. It's a super short game, almost like a demo in a way. But the really interesting thing about this article that I wanted to kind of have a discussion on is it mentions in the article, it says in games, we don't have the formal designation between a long game and a short game.
Mm.
A movie will almost always be somewhere between 80 and 180 minutes, but games are far more varied. So does a shorter game, essentially what the article's getting to, um, you know, does a shorter game mean that it should not be up for game of the year? Should there be a separate category for short games that are below a certain amount of time? I just thought that was an interesting conversation because we're always talking about like the gameplay, the quality of a game is obviously what we're going to be talking about in our reviews, but we rarely really ever mention like the length of a game, and like does that play into like the quality of the game as well? So curious to know kind of what you think about that.
Yeah, so I think this is a great thing to bring up because especially the Oscars just happened, right? They have the short films, right, that are up for nominations, and here we are with a game that is quite short, and I think that these games do have merit because it is kind of a cool way to, especially when you're talking about story forward games, like to kind of tell a short story in a nice little package. A game that comes to mind for me is the game A Short Hike, which is great, and I think that's awesome. And but then you kind of get into the weird realm of like, well, maybe I guess if like you sit down and you bang out an amazing run in Balatro or something like that, or like Dead Cells, you beat it the first run. That's not super long either, right? It's a roguelite, so like, yeah. So I guess you'd have to have some kind of distinction on like what really constitutes a short game. Is it a completion level percentage, or does it have to be 100% complete, or is it something that these games will have to, or these developers would have to kind of say, hey, I'm submitting this for a short game award. I don't
Yeah.
want it to be up against the Breath of the Wilds of the world, right? I want it to be up against Celeste 64 and A Short Hike and other small games like that. I think it's actually a pretty kind of neat thing that we could start to look at, especially with all the the it's a like all the layoffs we've talked about them ad nauseum at this point, but they could lead to some more opportunities for developers and people in the video game industry to kind of experience or experiment with making an indie game, but like not having to dump years and years of work and resources into doing it. Like, sure, I'm sure like a short game will take a lot of work and stuff like that, but to be able to kind of create something, a really short vision, to kind of present it and still have merits, I think is probably something that could be pretty beneficial for the video game world. Now, and then it comes down to the price point because you can have really long games that are still $5, right? So like,
Yeah.
how do you kind of measure it? Like, a Short Hike, I would say, was a game that I felt like it was worth every penny. It was just a really beautiful game, great story, cool premise, but it wasn't long. Like, I beat it in like one sit through or something like that, and that was awesome. And like, I guess even
Yep.
like something like what was the first game we Cocoon?
Yep.
That's like relatively short too. So like,
Yep.
it's kind of interesting. So I'm glad you brought it up. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. There's just so many factors when it comes to games that, like, I think the discussion has almost kind of started with the whole Dave the Diver
Hmm.
controversy, right? Of like what makes an indie game, and I think that could be expanded, right? Of like what can be considered for game of the year? Does the length of the game matter? Does the price of the game matter? And I think for Celeste 64, I think it was free, if I
Hmm.
believe so. And it's only one level long. So that also intrigues me as well. Of like, it would be really interesting if there was some sort of like competition where game developers could only make one level. It could be
Mm,
for any sort of game, and then maybe there's awards based on that. I think that could be really cool because that will definitely spark a lot of ideas. And I know, like in the world of art, like restrictions promote creativity or whatever they say, right? Like
hmm.
having, if you have no restrictions, it's hard to be creative about things. So, yeah, I think it's definitely really interesting, and I would love to see like a really short game win game of the year. But I think the better call is like you said, like what they do with the Oscars is maybe we have a category for short games. Maybe it's like 5 hours or less, something like that. I'm sure they could figure out, a length of time that makes sense. But yeah, definitely really interesting. And I'd love to know also like what the listeners think of. This is obviously the first time we really talked about anything like this on the show. So if you have any, opinions, listeners, definitely in the Discord, like Tommy mentioned, or tweet at us. Definitely would like to know kind of what you think about that. But yeah,
Yeah,
interesting topic for
yeah, it's
sure.
very interesting. I would love. I mean, even here on the eve of PAX East, would love to have like a single like fest or convention dedicated to those one level games that
Yeah.
right like because we're walking around playing demos at PAX East. What would be the difference if it was an actual competition or like festival like a Sundance or something like that, right? Where there will be games that get accolades from this and get a lot of press because well the general public really loved this one level game, and I think that would be
Yeah.
really really neat, and you can vote and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
maybe that's Fresh Juice Fest coming up.
Hey, that'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, I think that's a great point too, because like honestly, when we go to PAX, some of the games we wait in line for, it's like they're letting people play like 30 to 40 minutes
Hmm.
before they like move to the next, like, so you're in line forever. But then there are other games that are quick, you just hop in, hop out, like Plunder Panic, like as an
Yeah.
example. Like we're hopping in, hopping out, playing that, no problem. So I think that would be awesome even if there was like a section of PAX that was just like these are like your quick hitters, like you go in, you play a level, you hop out, and then you can just kind of move down the line. It's almost like speed dating, but for gaming.
Yeah.
It could be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I don't know, I like the idea of it, and I didn't even know the Celeste, and I was a huge fan of Celeste, so like, and that would have been a certified fresh juice if I may say so. That game is awesome. I'm looking forward to the next game that they make. I believe it's called Earth something, but
Yes, Earthblade.
Earthblade. So
Yes.
I have to imagine that that's going to be incredible as well. Now, um, we do have a game to talk about, folks. The main squeeze here. It is Rebel Transmute, a Metroidvania. What is the elevator pitch on this game?
Yes. So this is they call it a modern Metroidvania. And the kind of story elements here are that you are a player known as Moon Makono, who is a space scrapper that has turned adventurer on a mission to uncover the true fate of her missing mother. So it is kind of a retro looking Metroidvania. It's got over 80 unique enemies, 10 bosses. You get different abilities, different upgrades. It's hand painted pixel art that they say, which is pretty cool. And then it has a personal and heartfelt story. So that's the quick, in a nutshell, Rebel Transmute. And I'll be honest, what does transmute mean? I have no idea. This might look.
Well, trans is making something go from one place to the other, right? Like transition or
Oh
transit,
yes,
and then
change.
mute means uh, I don't know. I mean, mute means like actually that you
Quiet.
can't talk or it is very quiet or that you turn off the volume. But I think together it means something else. So like,
Yeah, I think I just looked it up to change or alter in form. So there we
ooh.
go. There you go.
We get a
Fancy.
little bit of that in this game, and I'll just hop right into the gameplay.
Yeah.
This is this the I guess like the third Metroidvania we played, maybe fourth. Leica was obviously a take on a Metroidvania, and then we had what the heck was the other one called? No, not Hand in Hand. It was not
We had
Hand in
a
Hand. It was
we had a demo. I know I played the Lone Fungus was a Metroidvania. That was a demo though.
Lone Fungus, but there was. I'm scrolling down right now. It was Rin the Last Child.
Yes, that was
Yes.
it.
Which, if we're gonna look back at that one, that was a game that had a lot of great ideas and not the best execution. And I think that this is a upgrade on that, especially in the gameplay. Right? There's a lot of great ideas here that I really, really love in Rebel Transmute, and the gameplay is easy enough, right, to get the hang of. So for context, I played both because like I played some of the game here with a controller, and then I played some in my hotel at work on just my laptop with like just the keyboard. And I will say the keyboard was a lot harder, and it's a lot easier and it's definitely made for a controller, right? So, all that being said, the movement here is probably going to be. I'll start with the negatives actually, as a change of pace. The movement here is not my favorite. It's not super fluid. There are points where it will kind of like glitch when you're trying to hop onto a platform or even like try to get under a platform. At least it's happened to me a couple times that I noticed. Like just like minor stuff, but it could lead to like a untimely death, and then you have to go back to your checkpoint or whatever. Now, that aside, I do think that I kind of really enjoy these. This is like more on the side of, this is closer to Metroid than it is Castlevania, where you're shooting, you have like a blaster. It's almost like Mega Man in a way. I felt like the actual vibe was closer to Mega Man, and
Yeah.
you can shoot up or to the side, and you're running around, and if you die, you like lose your health, right? The health stays there, right? And then you got to go find the health to get back to. So you have, I think you start with like 4 health bars or 4
Yeah.
health like
Dots. Yeah.
or nodes
Yeah.
or whatever, and like you have 4, and then if you get killed, you leave one of those 4. So then when you're going back to go get that node, you only have 3. So I think that's really cool. And also something that I really, really enjoyed about this gameplay was you also have this like, what do you call it? A syringe that you can,
Yeah.
as you kill different enemies, it fills up, and you can just stab yourself to basically get back a node of health. You don't get the node back, but you get to fill it up if you lost one of the health points. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a pretty neat system. I kind of like that. Like, yeah, you'll be able to heal yourself throughout the game. You don't have to go find things. You just have to be able to kill enemies and fill up your syringe and use it smart like in a smart way, because if you use it when you don't really need it, all of a sudden, you might have wasted it, and then all of a sudden you run into a tougher enemy, and you're like, oh, I could have really used that syringe now, because you have to like beat enemies to fill it up. Like that, it's an interesting challenge. It's a different axis to play the game. Now, on top of that, there's a really interesting kind of like upgrade system here where you find different things that you can kind of upgrade in your like menu. Now, I will say it was a little confusing to me, and it was a little all over the place, the inventory side of things. And it made it clear what the things did, but it didn't make it clear if it was like even being used. Like sometimes I felt like, and that was a little confusing, because I think that is probably one of the cooler things about the game. Like potentially, like as you probably progress, it becomes a lot more interesting when you have to like manage your inventory of like upgrades that you picked up. So I like it and I don't like it at the same time, because like I just want it to be more clear. And this is something that I think that a lot of games could learn from, right? And it's something that comes up multiple times in many reviews we've done, is that making it clear and having a good, UI or whatever is pretty important, because you want people to know exactly what they're doing. You don't have to make the stuff that you make decisions about complicated, right? The decisions are already complicated on its own because you're like, well, do I need this upgrade or or which one's better? Let me compare the two.
Yeah.
You should make it easy for the players to compare them. And I felt like it didn't necessarily nail that on the head, but other than that, I did like this game and the way it played. It felt very nostalgic. It's definitely the vibe they're going for. And, other than some movement issues and even like some weird, like punishing mechanics with the enemies, especially earlier on in the game, it felt like, okay, this is a well thought out Metroidvania. Maybe they're testing their players a little bit too much, but I felt like this is pretty cool. And then another, like, I guess complaint would be though is you don't start with the map, and I want at least some of the map when I play. Like every Metroidvania I play, you start with some of the map. I just need to know where I am and which rooms I've seen. Like just at the beginning, I'm maybe that's just me. I don't like to have to go find the map, and it's not that far into the game that you find it. But like, it was like a little bit of a pet peeve when I first started out. It's like, all right, well, I remember going into this room, but did I go into that one? I wish I had the map. I would have kind of been able to figure that out. But those are my thoughts on the gameplay. Overall, pretty decent. I kind of like what they're doing here, and I think that they have a great start to the game. I know it's fully out, so I think it has a really good core, and that if it is updated, it might be a great core, which I think is what we're looking for when we purchase a game and play it. But what about you?
Yeah, definitely agree with a lot of your points. It's got that nostalgic feel. I felt the movement was like pretty fluid. Like I didn't have too many issues with the movement, other than there are certain parts where I'm like, oh, I need to crouch here. Like I need to remember to crouch here. Like for example, and maybe you're not like used to doing that, so like jump like I don't know how to explain it. Like you slide through something and then you jump and then you got to crouch. You got to like remember like the pattern of buttons to click, otherwise you're gonna die or take damage. So that like parts like that I think were overall, like I thought they were well done, but it did take me a little bit to kind of get used to that. Overall, like the tutorial I didn't think was like good enough, and I think you kind of brought that up a bit with like the inventory, specifically the menus. I didn't know what I was doing at first. It took me a few tries to really understand how this works. There is a basic tutorial, obviously, in like some of the movement and things like that, but they don't really explain too much to you in the game. And I don't know if that's by design because Metroidvanias, like we mentioned earlier, like a lot of them are difficult, right? So like there's not you might not be sure of the direction you're supposed to be going, like you were mentioning without the map, and like that seems to be by design, right? Until you find the map. But even when you find the map, at least for me, I had trouble figuring out. Okay, I opened up the map, but what room am I in?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out if there was. I don't know if there was an icon I was missing, but I kept trying to look, and I was like, I don't really understand. Like I don't even know what room I'm in, and I can just see what rooms I've been in. But I didn't really know my orientation kind of in the world. And like I said, that could be by design. And maybe the game was too difficult for me. I don't know. And then like in terms of the inventory system with kind of your abilities and like upgrades that you can have from my research, I did see like Hollow Knight, I think, has a similar system. I haven't actually played Hollow Knight personally, but I think they have like a slot limit system
Mm-hmm.
where basically, you kind of start out with, I think it's like four different upgrade abilities, and each of them is like 0.25 of your inventory space that you can equip. So you start out with like, I think only having like one as your inventory space. So you could equip four of those, adds up to one, you're good to go. But the more you unlock, the more you're going to have to make sacrifices and be like, okay, I need to take away one of these 0.25s or two of these 0.25s so that I can have a zero point 0.5 ability that goes in there. And that's what I was doing. Like one of the abilities I got was like these tentacles fly out as you heal that kind of protect you. But it was like, I think it was like zero point 0.5 or maybe even like 1.5. I'm not 100% sure. or I forget the exact number, but it was a bigger one. So I had to sacrifice some stuff that I didn't really want to sacrifice. And this is the other thing that kind of bothered me with the gameplay. And I don't know if Hollow Knight is like this too, but like there are some of those abilities, right, that are that you have to assign in your inventory. They're not just like abilities. I guess abilities might be the wrong word. Like one of them, for example, is like showing your health, like on your HUD.
Hmm.
So if you remove that, you can't see your health at
Yeah.
all, or like how much, how many of the currency you've collected. So like there's things in the game that are like, to me, it's like a core element that like I shouldn't have to decide whether I want this or not. It should just be there. Like I shouldn't have to, I was like, I guess I can remove my health and then I'll have like this other ability, but I want to be able to see how much health I have left. And then there's like, but there are other ones that are like, oh, you can see the enemy health. So that's like something like, oh, I don't always need to see the enemy health, so I can turn that off.
Hmm.
But like for things related to me, I was just kind of like, I don't want to be forced to choose like something that I think is like a core game element. I don't want to remove that. That would be like if I was playing Dark Souls and I wanted to upgrade my character, but I had to remove like my health bar from the screen. So I didn't know, like it was just, to me, it just kind of seems like, again, I don't know if Hollow Knight works exactly like that. I just know they have a similar system. But to me, that kind of just bothered me. And I know as you progress through the game, you'll get kind of more inventory space. You can have more upgrades and it might not eventually be a problem, but definitely in the early game, like you said, like I felt like the game was kind of testing me with the difficulty, both with like the enemies and also with the kind of inventory management. And I thought that I was taking a look. I always take a look at like the Steam reviews just to get like a general vibe of, what people are thinking for this game. And someone put this on there, and I thought it was, I just copied and pasted it in here because I can't really think of a better way to say this, but they said, for those who hate investing time in an addictive, beautifully done game, only to reach a point that becomes too hard and frustrating to continue, maybe hold off on this one. And that's kind of how I felt as I was playing. Like in the beginning, I was like, all right, like I'm understanding everything. I get the nostalgic vibes. But just from the gameplay side of things, I kind of felt like I kept hitting a wall of like, this is just frustrating to try to get through. And maybe that's by design, but like for me, I'm just like, I don't want to be frustrated playing this. And hearing about that Animal Well game earlier
Yeah, it
and
might
how like
be.
easier, I was like, that sounds more up my alley personally. There are certain areas in the game that you'll get to, and like the walls kind of close in, right? So you're forced to fight, and like some of them are easier than others, but there were a few that I was just like, this is frustrating, not because I don't think I'm good enough to do it, but because of what the way it's designed. I'm like, I just like don't like the way that this battle is designed.
Mhm.
So who knows? It could be a me thing, but like that's just kind of how I felt overall with the gameplay.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think I noticed the thing with the health bar as well, and it made me think. Okay, they made this. They made this for hardcore gamers, right? They want a hard like who really like really difficult challenges. I'm not even saying like Souls like fans, right? I'm
Yeah,
saying like hardcore Metroidvania players, right? Like
yeah,
this has that kind of like vibe
yeah.
going on. And
Like the guy that we saw at the concert we went
yeah,
to, we talked about last week. That guy who beat Castlevania in like 20 minutes.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like so like those people do exist and this might be the game for them, right? So like um it's just like a little tough because like nothing else about the game seems like that. Like it's not giving you that vibe, right? And like I wouldn't if I looked at the marketing and the store page and all this other stuff, I would think, oh, I'm in for a fun adventure Metroidvania, right? Where I
Yeah.
run around space or wherever and killing things. And it definitely is more than that. Now, if that was what they were shooting for, they accomplished it. But it's a little tough to kind of grade that in the gameplay. I think the gameplay itself was good, but there's these kind of glaring things looking at you, and like the health bar thing. I think it's fine to have that as an option in the game for people who want to be like, I'm gonna hardcore this game.
Yeah.
Like oh, I'm doing no health bar this run. Like I'm doing a no health bar speed run of Rebel Transmute. And yeah, people are gonna love the hell out of that on Twitch and YouTube. I'll watch that. Hell, I mean that would be a lot of fun to watch. But building it into the core mechanics of the game is a little tough. So, but
Yeah.
I will say there is some story going on here, and it's worth mentioning. Personally, it's not a lot, right? It just kind of sets the stage for what you're doing on this like planet, and why you are the way you are. It has this like kind of cool anti-capitalism vibe going in, which is I'm always a sucker for. It's kind of like stuff like that where it's like they tried to set up the union, they tried to blame this on the union and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty interesting. Like they're kind of going for that, and like that it exists in this world. But outside of that, I mean, like I didn't get far into the game, so I don't really know how the story progresses. It gives a good reason as to why your character is who they are, right? Yeah. But other than that, I don't think it really gives a lot of great reasons as to, like, it doesn't set the stage as to why you are landing on this planet. Like, it says, like, oh, you should go to this planet or whatever. But it's like, okay, like, it doesn't, their background doesn't really give a lot to the reason that they're there, I felt like, but it gave some nice, like, background on your character, and you realize, like, motivations as to why you're kind of like this badass that's running around and being this badass, like I guess like space warrior in a way, which is cool. But outside that, I mean, it wasn't a lot that I got to, but it was certainly fine, and I think it set the stage well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think like, the fact that the main character is like looking for their mother, there's kind of that tie-in of kind of that emotional element, and kind of remind me of like the Cub a little bit, with like the obviously different settings, but just kind of that emotional kind of part of the story. And actually, like, I thought the story was going to be more intertwined in the game, and maybe that's why I was kind of like, this is more difficult than I thought it was going to be, because I kind of felt like, from what I saw, like they were almost like promoting the story quite a bit, and I was like, oh, this is going to be maybe more story driven than anything. But I would say, the story is there. You obviously get those lore elements, and you get some dialogue boxes, things like that as you're playing. And there's even like a little bit of humor kind of thrown into it of, you meet some robots that have kind of been like abandoned, I think, on the planet, and there's a little humor kind of thrown in there of just like, the robot knows what it wants, but it can't move, so it doesn't know how to get it, so it's going to ask you to get it. Things like that are your kind of like staples in games. But yeah, overall, I thought this story was fine, but it wasn't as big of a element as I thought it was going to be in this game. So it's definitely more on the gameplay side than the story side, if anyone's thinking of picking it up. But yeah, overall, though, I think it's always good to have a story than to not have a story in games like this. So appreciate all their work implementing the story, but it was just I was kind of just picturing it a little bit differently with this game. Even I don't even know if it's because of the name of the game. The name, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like I want to learn more about that. And that's not really what happens, I guess, in the story. And as we found out earlier, what transmute even means. But yeah, overall, I thought the story was fine, but it didn't. It didn't really like blow me away. I would say like the Cub, even though the Cub's not a Metroidvania, like that had a more engaging story. That was kind of what I was gonna, I was picturing this game to be, but just a Metroidvania kind of version of the Cub. But it wasn't really that.
Yeah, it certainly could have used a little bit more of a gripping story to make you want to like beat these tough challenges. So like, I think that it could have definitely elevated the game a little bit more, especially for a more casual crowd like us. But
Yeah.
that's a tough thing to balance. And I think that it's hard to judge this story without finishing the game, and I think that it's there. I don't know how it ends up, but I would imagine probably it wraps up in a way. There would be no reason to give us the beginning if you're not
Yeah.
going to give us an end, right? So pretty interesting. Now the visuals, I will say the visuals are the star of the show here. For me, I think I really like this aesthetic vibe. I think just a classic pixely, little sprite character design, which is a lot of fun, and it's really cool. Now, all that being said, I love these retro looking games, right? But where they fall is going back to the inventory management is in menus. If you're going to have a complex menu, it's hard to be this pixely, right? It definitely hurts the the overall experience there, right? When you're playing, when you're running around killing enemies and stuff like that. Yeah, this is awesome. I love this. This is great. It looks beautiful. Different environments, different levels look really, really sweet. But then you're like, let me hop into the inventory management. I'm like, I don't like reading a lot of like this stuff in that font, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
You mentioned Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a much more almost illustrated looking game, and that game has beautiful menus, very easy to read, and not as not as much of a punishing inventory experience. But that is where the benefits of a more updated look kind of comes into play, right? Like you almost want in a game like this menu, sure, this is my weapon, here's my whatever boost or whatever, like the different things, and I will click on it and have like icons that make more sense, I think, for what they do, right? The icons felt a little bit random, right? They just they all looked cool, but nothing about them told me what they did. If that makes sense? Like there was no like little wing on it. Oh, that makes me faster. Like that's like, I mean, that's kind of important, right? Like if you're going to have I think a tough to read game, or like, the visuals can be a little bit harsh when it comes to like the finer print stuff, you have to make up for it within like the icon system and the different things. Like now, like I said, I did not get far into the game. That could be something that is introduced, but like, it give us a little bit of context clues. So like, you don't have to struggle to read. Maybe I don't know how to read, folks. This is where everybody finds out Tommy doesn't know how to read. But if that's the case, where you're having this really beautiful pixel aesthetic, you have to keep that in consideration when it comes to the inventory or even your menus and stuff like that. I think that in the main menu it looks fine, right? Like big bold lettering. And then when you get into the inventory management, it gets a little bit more convoluted and tough to read. But outside of that, if you're not pressing pause, this game looks awesome. So that's basically it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agreed. It's got those classic vibes, that pixel art style. It also just like the enemy design, I really did enjoy. I thought even like the enemy behavior, I felt like every new enemy that I saw, you could tell it was new based on the way it looked. Nothing looked too similar, but then they also always behaved in different ways. Some enemies are kind of just floating around that weren't really like aggressive towards you. Other ones were going right at you. Different sizes of enemies. Like I thought they did a pretty solid job with like the enemy design. And then also just something I noted here as well was like moving to the next room. There's like always kind of this like pulsating like rainbow kind of door that you run through, and I always like I just thought that was a nice little touch because it's just like, oh, I need to get to that door. Like, let me, like, or like, oh, this is gonna bring me to the next room. I just thought that was a nice little touch there that they didn't really have to do. But I definitely agree about like the menus. For me, again, maybe we're just casuals. Maybe it's just not, not something that other people are dealing with. But I did think like, yeah, it was that happens a lot in these games where like they bring the art style of the game to like the menus, if that makes sense, and it doesn't always translate that well. Like maybe switch up the fonts or just switch up the menu doesn't need to be like fully themed to the game, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like we play plenty of games where the menu system seems too foreign from the game. So I think there's like a happy medium between like it being exactly like how the art of the game is and also not going too far and just looking too odd with the game. So I think there's a happy medium that this game can find, but it's a little bit too kind of pixelated, I guess is the right term for the menus. But overall, though, I mean, I agree. I think the art for the game is like the strongest part of it. It gives you all those nostalgic vibes. As soon as I hopped in, I was like, "Oh, like I'm in!" Like
Yeah.
even before playing the gameplay, I was like, "I'm in with this art style." Can't wait to see kind of what else they do. But yeah, so art definitely a strong point, but as we keep talking about, those menus with the gameplay and the art, definitely could use an improvement from our 30-plus-year-old brains.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like the
Yeah.
Simpsons meme. Am I out of touch? No, it's the children that are wrong. But
Yeah.
it comes down to like know what you have, right? Like they
Yeah.
they they have something great with how the rest of the game looks. Try working on translating it into what you're trying to do in your inventory system, etc. Menus, yada yada yada. But
Yeah.
um, the sound and the soundtrack I found myself enjoying. Now, initially, the music, I was like, man, it kind of feels empty, right? Like it feels a little empty to me. Like, why do I feel like that? And then I started to realize, you know what? That's actually making a lot of sense with what the game is. And I felt like, because you're kind of on this planet, you're the only one around. Maybe some robots running around too, but we know that those aren't true companions. And and you're kind of like killing these very non-humanoid enemies for most of the game, right? Like in throughout the regular gameplay, you're killing pretty much like very foreign, very alien like life forms. So you have no real connection to anything, and you're kind of alone, right? And that's just how it feels. And then that's how I felt like the music felt, and it added to that vibe. I think. That being said, it wasn't like my favorite music. I think there was something missing there, and I don't know what it was, but maybe it was the spaciness of it. But I can't say that it didn't work with the game, because it did work with the game to me, and I think that is more than enough, especially with a game like this. And I don't know. And the sound effects were cool, right? And just like these little
Yeah.
bugs running around, and they made funny noises. Your gun sounds cool. Nothing was like, why does it sound like that? Doesn't make any sense. No, it all was like, this is classic space retro vibes in the sound effects. The music was a little weird for me, but maybe I'm being overcritical, but that's where I was with the overall FX and sound.
Yeah, I definitely think, this isn't a soundtrack that you're gonna be bumping on Spotify or anything, it's no wizard with a gun kind of thing. But it definitely, like you said, it fits with the game very well. Like I wrote down like it kind of like has that spacey sci-fi esque like vibe, but it's not super overpowering. It's honestly something that like while I was playing, I had to like consciously be like, all right, I'm gonna listen to the music right now because it's not overpowering with the gameplay. So yeah, I thought overall it was fine. But it's not really anything that I think is gonna like blow you away. But it fits with the game perfectly. Like I really don't think they need to improve on it. It's just not one of those games that you're like, dude, I'm listening to the Rebel Transmute soundtrack. Isn't it sick? Like it just isn't one of those games. And then yeah, the sound effects were fine. Like the gun that you use sounds like a space blaster. It's like every sound effect in the game was like exactly what I kind of expected. Just like I could look at all these things and be like, oh, this is probably how this sounds, and like then you go play the game, and that's exactly how it sounds. So yeah, overall, like I thought the sound was fine. Kind of reminded me of like the story a bit. It's fine. It's there. It's doing its job, right? But it's nothing that's gonna really like blow you away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so tough. I mean, I just realized we're like coming off of another certified fresh juice hangover, Board Blasters. It's
Yeah,
also had like a banging soundtrack that I was listening to all week. And it is what it is, folks. We're
yeah,
gonna play some good games, and we're gonna try to forget about those games when we play other games. But sometimes it creeps
yeah,
in. Like you're like, oh man, I wish it was. I wish I was listening to that like almost 80s esque like action movie stuff from Board Blasters, which I think would also make sense in this game, but
yeah.
not to compare games. They're different games and different vibes. I do think the music made sense for what this was doing. Performance wise, I had no issues. I even played on like my shitty little like Microsoft Surface, and it was totally
Yeah.
fine. I'm guessing the same for you.
Yeah, everything ran great. No issues whatsoever. So it's always good to see that with a recently released game. Especially in indie. But yeah, everything was great for this one.
Yeah, and that brings us
Yeah.
to the rating system, folks. This is where we give the game a rating. We just talked about
Woo!
this game for about 30 minutes or something like that. So I think you probably all have a good idea of how we feel, but we're going to put it on wax by giving it a rating. Now, our rating system goes as follows. The best games, certified fresh juice. I just mentioned it. These are your Norp Apologues of the world, your Balatros, your Boar Blasters. Uh, excuse me. Then you have your next is a steal, right? Good game. Like I think we gave the Cub a steal, right? It's like good for the
Yeah.
price and it has like a lot to offer, and you feel like you're actually playing something that it's going to stick with you. But it's not necessarily the best game. And then you have Get on Sale. These are ones that are like okay, they have like good qualities, right? And but maybe they're a little overpriced, or it's just there's some things that makes you not want to pull the trigger quite yet until there's a Steam sale or a Nintendo Switch sale or whatever. And then we have manager specials. These are like you got to be really into the genre or something because it's not clicking with us, but there's some qualities there and I'm sure some people will like them. And then finally spoiled milk. These games are not good and I don't think anybody should play them. And I think I've only ever given one spoiled milk
Yep.
and you've given none.
I've given none so far.
But Matty Juice, what is your rating for Rebel Transmute?
Yes. So for Rebel Transmute, I'm going to be giving this an on sale. So reasoning for that, other than everything we've mentioned kind of throughout the show, is just I feel like I don't know if we mentioned this either. It's a $20 game.
Mm-hmm.
It's on every console. It's even on the PS4, which is pretty wild. And I just felt like there are other games in this genre. Obviously, there's a lot of Metroidvanias that I can get more value out of. And also, I had my issues with like the difficulty of the game, like kind of in the beginning, the way the inventory system is. There are just certain things that didn't really hit that well for me with this game. But there are some positives. Like I do think that if you are a Metroidvania fan, you're probably gonna enjoy this game. Like if that's like the only genre you really play, or if you just love those style games. I am that way. I mentioned it before with like Souls likes and Souls games. Like I like that genre, so I am a little bit more lenient with those style games because I understand how they work and I understand the challenges involved with them. So if you're a Metroidvania fan, I think this game will probably be fine, be good for you. But for me, I'm giving it an on sale, kind of middle of the road for me. But what are you thinking, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we do agree on a lot of things, and this is one of them. I think this is the perfect example. Yeah, this is the example I'll be using for Get on Sale going forward, if I remember, the next episode. But Rebel Transmute is the perfect example of a Get on Sale game, right? So many great qualities here. Some things that maybe didn't click with us personally, especially myself, and I can't really count it against the game because I think that there are probably people that are going to enjoy the things that perhaps I didn't like, right? So that being said, $20 is a little steep for this game. I do think there's a lot of content here. So if you are planning on playing this and like hitting it hard, I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. If you are like in a lull and need a Metroidvania or something that you want to try out, that has like matches your aesthetic that you like, etc., this could be it. Hopefully on sale. And yeah, I think a lot of great merits here. Metroidvania is a really tough genre to nail, right? There's a reason there's only X amount that people like heralds, right? Because like there's a lot that goes into them, right? So I think this is a valiant effort, and especially in a week that we have a big AAA Castle or Metroidvania come out. This is one that I would consider playing. If you want to support indie developers, maybe check this one out as opposed to the other one, which that one looks cool too. But we don't need to talk about it. But that was Rebel Transmute, folks. We have some listener questions, which you can submit on the Fresh Juice Discord. Great place to be, folks. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Or you can live with me and give me a question. Those are the two options currently. Or you can comment on YouTube or anything like that. But what is the first question here, Maddie?
Yeah, so Capolo, loyal listener of the show, shout out to Capolo, submitted a great question here. How many hours into a game do you guys get for the podcast review? Is it based on the genre, quality, until you get a good grasp of the game or the game loop? Or, basically, how many hours do you put into a game before you feel like you're comfortable giving a review?
This is a tough one. It definitely changes on the game, right? I think that the really good ones you end up putting a lot of hours into. And then the not so good ones you don't put so much time into. But I think the good grasp of the game loop and what it's accomplishing and whatever, I think is usually the amount of time. Something like Balatro, right? Which I ended up putting in like probably 10 hours before the review and maybe 1,000 after. I would have been able to give it a good review after 30 minutes, to be honest with you. The game loop is pretty straightforward. You understand that there's a lot to kind of explore there, etc. This game, I felt like maybe an hour into it, like I had a good grasp. Tried to like figure out some stuff, listen to some things. These kind of like long adventure games are a little bit tougher because you want to give it the old college try into getting as much time into it. I try to always give a couple hours if the time allows, but there are often times when you can kind of get a good grasp of what's going on with the game, especially the shorter ones and the roguelites too. Like they're usually like, here's what you have. This is what you're gonna do over and over again, and hopefully you really enjoy it. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But with like the adventure games, it takes a little bit longer. But how about you, Matt?
Yeah, definitely agree. I would say I play a game. It varies like the amount of time I'm putting into it, but I'll play a game until I can really understand the gameplay loop. And then if I can understand the gameplay loop and a game like Balatro, where I'm like, all right, this loop is really addictive, I'll put more time into the game to maybe figure out some of the little nuances maybe that you wouldn't notice, kind of through like the first few playthroughs. But then, yeah, for a game like Rebel Transmute, where obviously there's a story there, we can't comment on the entire story because we haven't finished it. We also work, full-time jobs.
Yeah.
We're reviewing a game every single week, so it's just not really feasible for us to like. I can't put 20 hours into a game every single week to fully understand a story. So that's why we're always prefacing our reviews with like, these are our opinions. This is what we experienced as, when we played. It could be different for you, listening. But yeah, I usually just try to get a good grasp of the game loop. I would say probably on average, I'm like putting in like 2 to 3 hours on a game. But it really, yeah, it does vary like based on the game. And then obviously, it also matters like when we get the game.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to do like new reviews, games that released over the past few weeks, but sometimes we'll get a key for a game, uh, you know, 3 or 4 weeks early, so I'm able to put a little bit more time into that game. Like I know Born of Bread, I think was one of those games that we got a little bit early, so I put a little bit more time in there than I maybe normally would if it was like I only had a week to play it. So yeah, I would say I try to get 2 to 3 hours in there, but really it's just when I understand the game loop, and that's really also like the magic moment, right? Like I just we think of Balatro or Norp Apolog of just like once you understand the gameplay loop, you're like, oh, this is a good game.
Yeah.
Like this is like you just as soon as you understand it, you're like, I want to play so much more of this. And then that's when we start thinking of like, all right, certified fresh juice, baby. So that's the best indicator. And honestly, we're going to PAX East this week. That's what I try to do when we're at PAX as well. I want to understand the gameplay loop for these indie games that we play. And honestly, sometimes like these demos, they're put together in a way where like it's hard to understand the gameplay loop. But then when you go actually play it, maybe at home, you can kind of understand it a little bit better. So yeah, it varies for a lot of the games, but I would say yeah, the gameplay loop is. I'm going to say gameplay loop a million more times. That's the key.
That's the
for
key.
me. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Cap. Thanks, Cap, for the question. Appreciate you, buddy. Next question comes from K Moore, who asks, "What are your thoughts on remakes/remasters of games? Should there be X amount of years before it happens? Should it be a one-to-one or a reimagining, etc., etc.?"
Yeah, great question here as well. I know that's a hot topic, and anytime a remaster or even like a reboot for like a movie comes up, there's always people like, oh, like the old one's better, or like, oh, they just rebooted this. Like I know that happened a lot with Spider-Man, right? Like how many reboots of Spider-Man did we have for the movie, not the games, but I guess even technically the games too. So I think for me, like there isn't really a set amount of years I would say that a remaster should happen or a remake should happen. I do like the idea of like I think remasters should happen like for each generation of people, right? So like however many years that could be, maybe skip a generation. So maybe I don't know, 15, 20 years there's a new game that's a remaster of an old one, just so the new generation can maybe appreciate it more. A lot of these older games, they don't get ported to the new consoles. It can be hard for like the younger generation to even get access to them. But then, I'm just thinking of like Demon Souls, for example, is a game that I never played. I think it was on like I don't even know what it was on, PS3, PS2, something like that. It was basically it was the first Souls game. I never really played it. I didn't have that console. I just didn't have access to it. But then it got re-released, remastered for the PS5, and I bought it right away. And I enjoyed playing it. So it was just something for me that like I thought that was great that they remastered it. But there's other people out there that were not happy that they spent development time remastering a game that already exists. And then kind of the second part of the question here is like, should a remake or remaster be like a one-to-one or a reimagining? So I think it could work both ways, but honestly, I think one of the best examples of like a reimagining that I wish would happen more is Link's Awakening on the Switch. They reimagined that game, and it's the same game, but like the art is different. It's 3D. I want them to do that for like every old school Zelda. Like I love that they reimagined that. I powered through. I binged the hell out of that game when it came out, and I was actually just talking with Maria earlier about like I want to play it again. So I think reimagining is a lot more interesting, but it also has a lot more room for error.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe a 1-to-1 is the safer bet, but I guess I'm more of a fan of the reimagining than the 1-to-1 remakes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't really know where I fall on this because I played Link's Awakening, loved it, right? I mean, I played Ocarina of Time on like I think like 10 consoles, at this
Yeah.
point, like, so like I'm down for it, especially I don't like a lot of changes in the gameplay, right? I think aesthetic changes are fine, like upgrading or reimagining how it looks, like Link's Awakening is a great example, is a fine way to do it. But I don't know. It's like, this is a tough question actually, Kmore, because I think that, you got to let it breathe for sure. But I like going back to the original console. Like I am one of those like dudes. Like I don't know. Like Gauntlet Dark Legacy is a game we talk about often, right? And
Yeah.
there is like a remaster, like a community remaster that is in the works. There's a huge Discord. There's a lot of people in that Discord. I don't know if you ever look at that, but like,
Yeah.
and I don't know when it's ever gonna come out. It might never come out, but I don't know if anything will match the experience of booting up my GameCube and just playing it on the couch. I think like a remaster would be cool, but I don't know. I think maybe I'm just a sucker for nostalgia. I would almost like to go back to the N64 and just play Ocarina of Time. So that's coming from someone who played it on like multiple consoles. So it is a tough question, but a good one, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Kmore. And finally, we have a question from rcarp11, who asks the important questions: burgers or tacos?
This is an easy one for me. I'm going with burgers. All
You're
right.
wrong.
We finally disagree on something. No, but yeah, I just, like tacos, I like a good taco, right? Like we were in Kentucky. We had
Yeah,
some great tacos in
those were
Kentucky.
banging.
But
Zombie
like
tacos. Shout out Louisville.
yeah, zombie taco. Um I I don't like masa, like the taste of masa, I think it is, right?
The
And
corn tortilla.
yeah, like there's just a weird taste sometimes I have with them that I'm just like, I'd rather not gamble on like a taco if it's might taste like that because obviously it's hard to avoid that taste with a taco. But then it really just depends on like those zombie taco ones were like fantastic. But really, like at the end of the day, like I've had way more burgers in my life. I've made more burgers than tacos. I am a burger fan, a smash burger in particular. I do love the smash burgers, but I'll take any a homemade burger with a big old patty. Like I like all the variety with burgers, and I guess I can't say I like all the variety with tacos.
Interesting,
Yeah.
Matthew. Well, I'm going
Yeah.
to disagree with you on two things. I don't think Smash is the best version of the
Okay.
burger. I gave Smash a good chance. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this tastes excellent. But guess what? I'm still hungry. And that's the beautiful thing
That's why
about
you get
tacos.
two.
That's the beautiful thing about tacos is, yeah, I'm going to have 10 of these. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I know how many I'm going to have.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to feel too bad about it, too. Now, I understand the masa thing, but, if it's made really well, it doesn't matter. Like, and I try to think of these two gargantuans in the food world as when I'm thinking about them against each other, I'm thinking about the best, the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
And I think a good taco, I don't think there's anything that can beat a good taco. I think the versatility there, the different kinds of proteins you can throw in there. Like, hey, if you're not feeling a beef taco, have a pork taco. If you're not feeling pork, maybe a little shrimp taco, maybe a fish taco. Vegetarian, we have so many different kind of tacos for you. Now, you can make the argument black bean burger, yada yada yada, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Burgers,
Those suck.
the burgers are they're not that great. I've had maybe one okay veggie burger in my day. I will also preface this with I'm off beef right now. Maybe for the rest of my life. Who knows?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna break my off beef to actually have a burger in Minneapolis at the Juicy
There you
Lucy.
go.
I have to try that, right? I'll be in pain for it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about like a good taco that like like a little crema, or even just sour cream if you're just doing like
Yeah.
white people taco night at home.
Yeah.
It slaps, man. It slaps. But I respect your opinion, but you're wrong. That's
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
You're allowed
Hey,
to
I
be.
just had tacos for dinner. All
Did
right,
you?
right before the episode. Yeah, we had some
Oh,
ground beef tacos. Yeah,
interesting.
well,
Interesting.
them white people tacos. Yeah, it was good. It was good though. It was good. But you know, I get it. I get it. I honestly I feel like under the influence, I'll have anything. I'll have
Sure,
either of
sure,
them.
sure. Yeah, that's
So and that's usually like if I have the choice between burgers and tacos, I'm probably under the influence anyway.
sure, sure,
But
sure.
yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And also, like, how do you feel about like a taco burger? Like those burgers that are like Mexican burgers, I
Oh,
guess. Like, is that something you're into? I guess.
how are you? How do you mean by that? Like it has like Mexican ingredients on it, or like one of those like burgers that they're folding into a taco?
Oh no, like it has like Mexican ingredients on it, and it's trying to be inspired by a taco, I guess, or
I'll be honest with
Mexican
you.
food.
When I was still eating beef, and it's only been a couple months now that I haven't really had a lot of beef, but like I always would like I would scan the menu. I'm like, oh, the 5 alarm fire burger, that's me. Or the jalapeno supreme burger, that one's mine. Like I need some spice. I need some flavor. But like with a taco, you usually get that anyway. So I don't have
Yeah,
to really worry about it now. Thank you for the question, R Carp 11. You've divided a house here at the Fresh Juice. The
that's what they
fresh.
want.
That's what they want.
Our significant others are upset that we keep agreeing on things. So there we go.
There you
There's something we
go.
disagree on.
Yeah, we disagree, folks. It's not all peaches and cream over here of the podcast. We're gonna really lay into each other after I hit
Yeah.
stop recording right now. But before we do that, though, we do have the rec room where we're gonna recommend something that perhaps isn't an indie game and something that we've been enjoying. What do you have to recommend this week, Matthew?
Yeah, so from my side of things, it's a throwback here. I am currently in the middle of watching The Sopranos for the first time ever. I've never seen it. I've seen like little clips here and there. And it was actually going to be my rec room last week, but then I remembered about sulfur, or you reminded me about sulfur. So Maria has seen The Sopranos before, but it's been a while. But it's from '99, still holds up pretty well. Great acting. No smartphones in the show, which is like all that tech stuff is not in it, so that's kind of cool. A little throwback there to when we were growing up, and yeah, it's been an entertaining show. I think we're like on season 3 right now. I wasn't really sure how I was gonna feel about it. I had heard that I kind of put off watching Breaking Bad for a while, and then I finally watched through it, and I'm like, all right, I get all the hype. Like this show is awesome. And what I always see is that people say like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos are like two of the best like shows that have ever existed. So I'm like going into The Sopranos, I was like, is it gonna be like? There's no way it's really gonna hold up. And so far, I mean, through season 3, I'm like, all right, this is pretty good. It's holding up pretty well. I know how it ends. Everybody knows how it ends, but yeah, that would be my rec room. If you haven't seen The Sopranos, go watch it, get a little gabagool. I gotta say, every time they eat in that show, I am like so hungry. I'm like,
Yeah.
these guys got like ziti and like raviolis, and they're just eating like salami. Like I'm just like Jesus. I'm gonna have a heart attack if I eat like them. But yeah, The Sopranos. That's the rec.
I'm the same with you. I never watched it all the way through. I've just seen like a billion clips, right? Just over and over and over. And I love them and I want to watch the show. It's just I haven't committed the time. But the clips that I do love especially is whenever he's just like pulling out some meat from the fridge. He's eating gabagool or mortadelle or some prosciutto or something. And I'm like, God, I should just keep that stuff in my fridge because that
Yeah.
sounds awesome. And I sometimes do. But my recommendation is this is gonna sound I'm obsessed with this game, Balatro. We reviewed it, And I even told Maddie before the show, I was kind of trying to play it in the car. Did not work, and I am safe. Don't worry. Maybe at the time I wasn't being super safe, but to get my fix, I've just kind of been watching, and I posted some in the Balitro channel of the Fresh Juice Discord. Some videos I've just watched of like some really cool seeded runs and stuff like that. And I watched one today that was not a seeded run. It was just Northern Lion. If anybody knows, I'm sure people know Northern Lion. I remember watching some of his stuff years ago, and I haven't watched anything since then. And then I saw he posted a video of like him doing a double helix run. If you've played the game, you probably know what the helixes are now. And it was the most entertaining hour of my life. Not seriously, but it was so fun because he's hilarious. I forgot how funny he is. And not only that, he keeps dropping Seinfeld references the whole time. He's like, I'm loving every minute of it, Jerry. Just like it is fun and just actually a blast to watch because you get to kind of see like a Balitro run like really work out too. All the while he's being entertaining as hell. I recommend it wholeheartedly. I'll post it in the Discord right after this if anybody's looking for a good watch. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really love this game. a million copies it sold already.
Yeah, crazy. And also, like, I was not anticipating this much YouTube content to be around the game. It's so awesome because people keep sharing videos in Discord, and I'm like, like the guy who had all tens in his deck.
In that seeded deck,
yeah. I was like, that's crazy. Like, there's so many possibilities with this game. And it's so cool to see like all these awesome YouTube. Like, I didn't think I would ever be entertained watching a YouTube video of Balitro. And here I am,
It's awesome. It's just like, this is a closing thought here on this episode. Put a button on it. And yes, we'll probably bring up Balitro again, right? Because there'll be content that probably is updated for that game. But like, it truly feels like this is a moment in gaming. And it feels cool that we got to review, like in our short stint of this podcast already, in our first like 30 episodes, we got to review a game that truly feels like a moment, right? These moments don't happen often. It's Stardew Valley, Balitro, Slay the Spire, Dead Cells. It doesn't happen that often. And it felt cool to kind of be a part of it. And it's.
I think we're the reason for it.
We're the reason.
I think 1 million sales. I mean, we got to be for like half of those, I think. I would imagine.
I mean, when it comes out on mobile, I'll be buying it again.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for the show, folks. You can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod, still doing Fresh and Buds. I have a great episode up with my buddy Dagan White last week, and this week is Dylan from TCG Talk, which is a pretty fun trading card game YouTube channel. He'll be on Thursday. And you can continue to find us on all socials at Fresh Juice Pod. Where can the people find you, Matty Gorm?
Yeah, if you want to check me out at Matty Gorm on all the socials, GORM. I probably won't be too active because we'll be at PAX, but we will be posting on the Fresh Juice TikTok for some game coverage and hopefully some little developer interviews where they're pitching their game, and we're chatting with some pretty cool people. So check out the TikTok definitely for Fresh Juice Pod. And then, I'm hoping that my own personal channel will get a little bit more active at the start of April because the beta for Once Human comes back, which I know is a game we talked about some weeks ago. So I've been waiting for that basically to come back. And once it does, I'll be putting out some more content myself over there. But Tommy, another great app in the books.
Another one. Can't wait for PAX. If you're there and you see us, say hi. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you all. And